the other day when they gave this little talk, I turned off the recorder and then I told people this little story that I had just read, and I wanted to think more about it. So there's this book called the Book of the Kadam, and it has a story in here at the very first page about Drangtopa, who was the main successor of Atisha. And I really enjoyed this little one sentence here. So I'll set up the stage for it. So he wasn't really considered the greatest student of Atisha by others, but he was known to be as really, he served him very wonderfully. So when Atisha passed on to the kind of like the, I don't know what you would say, the burden and the throne of to the next person, he chose Drangtopa to follow him, to be the main teacher. And it turns out, in reading this, that he tended to teach in a more, with just a small amount of instruction. It says here, he sustained the qualified seekers who gathered near him with succinct, profound instructions rather than numerous public discourses. And although several of his disciples, such as this one Naljorba, requested extensive teachings, he is said to have made it a point to rebuke them so harshly that it rooted out the afflictions at the very bottom of their minds, at the very bottom of their heart. And that was the line that kind of caught me, because I've always wondered about this, this kind of wrathful kind of aspect of being a teacher. And so I wanted to think about it a little bit before I shared it, because I kind of find that to be true. There is something in this way where you need something strong to get to the bottom of your heart and mind, I find. You need a strong medicine, I find. And so I wanted to shore this up with this story that I remember from in the Lam Rim, from Lama Tsongkhapa. He talks about this when you're relying on a teacher. There's this one attitude you're supposed to kind of have where you don't get angry at your teacher even if they kind of berate you. You're trying to really have this mind that stays more humble and more respectful. And that's really hard to do when you perceive something coming at you that is difficult to hear. That's really the issue here. So the story that I thought was always so funny was there was this time when this one Geshe was with one of his disciples, and they were meeting with that Geshe's teacher. And the student of this Geshe said to him, "This master hates us, both teacher and students." And then the Geshe replied to him, "Do you think he's berating me? It seems like me, I'm being blessed by Haruka." And that story was a little bit short. So then it seems like the way Geshe Sopa explained it, it filled it out a little bit more, and I found that helpful. Okay, so this is the same point in the Lam Rim about how to remain humble and respectful when you perceive things coming at you that you find kind of berating and hard to hear. So he says the story like this. There's a story that illustrates this point. Every time Geshe Lasso went to see his guru, Tolungpa, his teacher would scold him and put him down. After a while, Lasso's own student became fed up and declared, "This teacher is so hostile to our master." To this complaint from a student, Geshe Lasso replied, "You understand his words as scolding, but every time my teacher speaks like this, for me it's just like receiving a blessing from Haruka." So that's, I think that's an appreciation on his part of what the teacher's trying to do. And the way I look at this is, I've kind of had a difficult time with that idea that wrathful means it's like when you're a parent and your 2-year-old or 3-year-old is running out into the street and you have to be so, like, get back, and you have to be wrathful then. You have this compassion and you want to protect the child. And this is actually the way it is. But my mind would never accept that. And recently I read a commentary on this by Geshe Sopa in a different book, Will is a Sharp Weapon, or one of those commentaries. And it explained this, and it was again that same thing. And I finally thought, well, what is my problem with taking this in this way? Like, why can't I just accept that? And I had to really look at my mind and think of it, how I'm functioning when I need something that's so strong. And I I do think there's a part of it that feels kind of childish to me. My viewpoint is really, yeah, either I need a strong medicine because it's something that's very hard for me to see, very habitual. You know, there's somewhere where I'm blind. That's one. Or the other is that I'm also maybe blind, but there's a part of me, my ego, that doesn't want to look at myself in this way, that I need to change and I need something strong here to make me recognize this and understand this. And I think this, what I find to be really useful in this teaching is this attitude of when I perceive what I think feels strong sometimes and I have difficulty with, it's such a conflict inside of me. It doesn't really matter if it's venerable children or really anyone. With her, it's got this greater importance to me because she's my spiritual teacher, and the relationship is quite important. But this happens with other people too. And I think it's this thing of really, it makes me kind of stop dead in my tracks and really be much more careful. Instead of letting myself just fall prey to the afflictions, because when your mind is afflicted, your mind is deluded. And when your mind is deluded, what you're seeing, what you're perceiving is deluded. And so when you have this relationship with someone that's so important, you're more careful. And so what that does is it makes me stop, and I have this conflict going on inside, like, why would they say that? And the other side is, wow, why did they say that? You know, that's the side I need to get to. Why did they say that? What is it I need to learn here? What are they trying to teach me? What are they doing that it's so, most people wouldn't bother, you know, most people won't do this with you. Most people will not take it on to point out your faults and to help you to grow in that way. It's very difficult to do. I won't do it most of the time. I'm like, I really pick and choose when I'm willing to do this. You know, and then it's a matter of having skill too. So I find this thing about this idea of rebuked so strongly that it took out, you know, from the bottom of his mind or the bottom of the heart. I think that's really something to think about, and you can see in your own life how this might enhance your understanding of how you perceive when people have feedback for you.